Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined by writer and regular guest over the years, Louise Welsh. Hello, Louise.
It's so nice to be back, Alistair. I love Scots Whay Hae.
And we
Where I
should
get
say
my culture from, where I find out what's going on in the across Scotland.
that's good to hear. We should say that you're speaking to us from, you've got your university hat on today.
I do. I'm working from my office that looks a wee bit bleak, but it's not bleak when you're inside. I think it just photographs as bleak, whereas your house looks so beautiful and warm and welcoming. It looks like it smells lovely. It looks like it smells of something really, I don't know, nice.
I don't know. It certainly smells of some books. There's no doubt about
Orange and basil and some
that.
lovely combination.
We're here to talk about your latest Rilke novel. I've got my copy here for people watching
Yay.
the video, the cut up, and I'm sure we'll cover a whole lot more. In fact, I know we will. But for those who don't know, can you give us an introduction to the character of Rilke?
Oh goodness, so Rilke's comes right from my heart, really more than my head, I think. Rilke is an auctioneer. He works in Glasgow and he's worked at the same auction house since he was a boy, and that makes him sound like a steady character, but actually he's an adventurous person, much more adventurous than he realizes. He's a gay man. He's got a small band of friends and a large group of acquaintances. And I think Rilke is somebody that keeps his inner circle quite small, but
Yeah,
really, he gets greeted by people across the city. And Rilke's, I think, like a lot of central figures in crime fiction, he's got a strong moral code, but it's not. Yeah, he doesn't always steer on the straight and narrow. So his strong moral code allows him to break the law from time to time.
yeah, he's got his own strong moral code, but that doesn't necessarily coexist with the law. There are times when he,
Yeah, and I think that's true of a lot of people, really, isn't it? But so and he's funny, he's humorous, he's energetic. He's like the opposite of me. He's a very tall, thin man, and he's a nice dresser because he works in the second-hand trade, and you can get lovely men's tailoring there. He's quite fussy about that, and yeah, he's the only character that I've written that knows what everything is made of.
yeah.
So he would know exactly what wood something was made of, even though he couldn't identify a tree. Once it's cut down and polished, he knows what the wood is. He knows metals, he knows stones, he knows provenance, he knows paintings and all of these things. So it's fun to write him because you can bring some of the materiality of the world into.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm so attracted to him, I think he knows the worth of a good pair of brogues, well-made shoes, and a well-cut tweed suit. And I think, yeah,
Exactly. Which are all things that we like as well, you know. These things are exiting the world now. When I was younger, you could buy secondhand, good secondhand clothes really well, really. And I worked in a vintage clothes shop when I was a student, and we would sell any amount of tweed suits, gorgeous gabardines. And I'm a fan of the long coat, the long coat I think is looks good on a gentleman and on a lady too, yeah. So I'm a fan of all that stuff.
and what is it about the character? You've maybe hinted at this, saying it's from your heart more than your head, but also the cast of characters around him that you want to return to.
It's fun, I think these books because of course I wrote Cutting Room. It came out in 2002, and I wrote the second volume came out in 2022. So it was a returning, and I returned partly because the cutting room in 2020, I think it was given an award by popular vote at the Saltire Society, and it was the public's favorite first novel award from the Saltires. It was the one that people had, one of the ones people had really enjoyed, and that really cheered me up. And I thought, oh, people are still enjoying this. That's amazing. And then I was thinking about it more, and I was thinking about how the world, especially the queer world, had changed in those 20 years, because there's a lot that stays the same, but actually in those 20 years, there's a lot that has changed in terms of gender identity and, the subtleties and nuances around that, in terms of equal marriage, in terms of civil partnership, in terms of hate laws. We didn't have those back in 2002. So the world is in many ways, oh my gosh, what a mess we're in, what an absolute mess. In terms of legal rights for queer people in Scotland and the wider UK, that's improved. It's improved quite a lot. And I wondered what Rilke would make of that. And he's a fan, obviously, of not getting beaten up in the street. But he's not really somebody who's bothered by equal marriage. It doesn't, he's happy for other people to do that, but he wouldn't do it. But there are other things, yeah, that have changed. There were no apps. There was no mobile dating apps back in Rilke's earlier time. So it's moved on 20 years, but the cast of characters are the same and none of them have aged. So they've got this weird consciousness of time, but they themselves are out with time. So I think of it like William Brown, who's, in the Just William books. William Brown is always 11 and three quarters. And I think those books start in the 20s
Mhm.
and they go right up until maybe the 70s. I don't know how long they go. But William Brand is always 11 and three quarters, and Rilke is always going to be just, this whatever age he is.
And that hadn't really struck me that none of them have particularly aged, but when I think of the descriptions of them, you're absolutely right. But if you put people in antique clothes, then often you can get away. You will look perhaps the same if that's the way that
Yeah.
you've got a style then that can do it. And it's interesting to compare the Rilke character over the years, or the books over the years. So this kind of recognition was one of the reasons that you returned in, because 20 years on is quite a while to kind of leave it between the two.
Yeah. Well, I'd always thought that I would go back. I always thought that I
Yeah.
would go back and write another one, but I didn't really feel that I had a story for Rilke. It was, I don't know, and I didn't want to spoil it. I didn't want to just do something for the sake of doing it because I'd been asked to do it
Yeah.
many times. People had said, "Oh, would you write another one?" And I just didn't want to not do it if I wasn't 100% feeling it. And also, there would often be something else that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I've written, I think, 11 novels now. So it's not like I wasn't doing anything, but uh, yeah, I had to be the moment when you feel it yourself. So it was very funny after doing that one, the second one, the second cut. I wrote another book called To the Dogs, which is a campus novel.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Writing about the place where I work. And that was great fun to write. And then I thought I would like to do another Rilke. And I just came at it with energy.
So well, let's talk about the cut up. What can you tell us about the premise of the cut up without giving anything away?
Ooh. So, it's the very first book that I've written that you find the body on the first day, on the first page. The first day of the book, that's the bodies lying on the floor. And that's quite a sort of traditional opening to a crime fiction novel.
Yeah.
And I'd never ever done that. And I thought, I wonder if I can manage that. And so Rilke steps out of his the auction house. He's the last one out. It's a not very nice Glasgow evening, early evening. And he's thinking, "Ugh, we want to go for a pint since 2 o'clock today. This afternoon, I'm going to take myself off." And he sees somebody lying next to the wall and he thinks they're a rough sleeper. And he sort of thinks, oh, well, people have got to sleep somewhere. If you're a rough sleeper, unfortunately, you've got to sleep somewhere. Why not here? And then he thinks, oh, I just need to check on this guy. I just need to and then he realizes that he recognizes them and he thinks that they've maybe had too much to drink or whatever. And then he turned the body over and they are indeed what we used to call when I was a child, deedified. He's
And what a way he goes as well. We might talk a little bit
um,
about that. Interesting enough, this is a character. I was trying to think of this as regular in crime fiction, but the there's plenty of candidates who may want this guy gone.
Yeah, well, that's sort of it's kind of fun as well, isn't it? And but it's also this idea of having sympathy for the victim, which, I think you do when somebody's subjected to some act of violence, you have sympathy for them. But within this novel, this is not a guy that they're taking a collection for. This is not a guy that they're going to, that's going to be much miss. He's a jewelry dealer, and everybody's saying, "Ah, do you know who's buying his stock?" Which is a little bit cold.
But I'm interested. This book, I don't know, all of them are set against the background of the kind of antiques trade, and that's a world you know, isn't it? I mean, you've got,
Yeah, yeah, to an extent, because I was a secondhand bookseller for years. I mean, really about 8 years, I think, all in. And so I would go to auction houses all the time. I would go to secondhand shops. I miss jumble sales, We used to have jumble sales that we would go to, and car boot sales, of course, have kind of taken over that. So I would go to all these places, and again, you're a solo worker or working with, somebody that you work with, but it's not like at the university where you have a massive amount of colleagues. And yet you do have a massive amount of colleagues because you've
yeah.
got all of the other traders and antique dealers. And sometimes you find something and you think, I know who would like this. I know who would like to buy this. Or yeah, it's an interesting world. It's a highly textured world. And it's a world where you have to be knowledgeable and you have to have your eyes open, and it's to an extent quite a precarious world as well because there's not there's not a wage check going into your bank account at the end of every month, and sometimes you're doing better than at other times, and that definitely feeds the precarity of that definitely feeds into Rilke's world.
And is it a world where you may have some, let's say, shady characters?
Well, not as many as I meet at the university. Yeah, I think it's a world where I always experienced great kindness in that world. I was very young when I started. I was in my early 20s, and people would be nice to you, really nice because they kind of got that you were young,
Yeah.
and so that was nice. When I started out, people would always say, "Can I speak to your dad? I've got something to say, Sel. Can I speak to your dad?" I'd be, "Oh, it's me. I am my dad." Uh, but yeah, like anything else, there's always an element, any walk of life, whether you're a plumber or a joiner or an academic, you'll meet some people that you think, "Oh, okay."
I think what it does allow is that in your books, there's always lots of lovely detail. And I think, I'm thinking of the way people dress. We've touched on Rilke, but other characters as well. And you've got cars, details, even lipstick, kind of sights, sounds, and smells in the book. Um, do you enjoy that kind of sensual side of writing?
Oh yeah, I love all of that. I mean, I really do, and I think it's a reason to get out of your house, And I say this when I'm working with writers that are young in their craft, and like from now on, you're not don't plug yourself in all the time to the headphones.
Yeah.
Don't be looking at your phone constantly. Look at the world, listen to the world, feel the world, because there are interesting things going on out there. And I guess I'm interested in clothes, I'm interested in the way people dress and the way people present themselves to the world, the changing trends.
Yeah.
Like I was out at the weekend and I noticed almost every young woman that I saw, they were all wearing these gorgeous pretend fur jackets, quite
Yeah.
shaggy jackets that are high at the waist. And they look fantastic, but almost all the young women seem to be wearing this. And I got off the this I probably will put in a book. I got off the underground the other day at St. George's Cross, and there was a woman walking down the platform, and there was a Sikh man who'd got off the train, and he was walking up the platform. He was exiting, and I'd noticed his turban because it was the most beautiful color of purple. It was like this really fantastic deep lavender color. And this lady had a hat on and it was the same deep lavender and they passed each other. And it was just such a beautiful picture. His turban, her beret, the same color in the Glasgow subway, just that little moment of chance, just lovely chance.
Did they acknowledge each other, or was it just a kind of?
No, they didn't. I didn't know if anyone else noticed. I wish that I was with someone so I could say, "Oh, look at that." What are the chances of because it was quite a particular color as well. So now I think, gosh, is this color coming in? Is this something that I'm gonna look out for that deep lavender? Is that the color of the moment?
And I guess that attention to detail, going back to the antiques world, is really important. So you can know the difference between a real bone handle on something or what, and things which aren't that way. And that's when I'm trying to avoid talking about the murder weapon here, but there are things which are noticed,
Yeah, yeah.
which are down to them being specific antiques.
Yeah, exactly. And not only does Rilke, we can say what it is. He
Yeah.
get
Right.
the body has a hat pin through the eye, and not only does Rilke notice this, he knows where it comes from, and he knows the monetary value of it. He knows that in auction it'll go for between this and this, depending on who's in the room. And these are just involuntary thoughts that whirl through your brain in a matter, in seconds, or not even less than a second. Yeah, so it's fun thinking about the materiality of the world, the old things, all the things that we're surrounded by, and in terms of auction houses or second-hand shops, things that have been cherished at one point and are now no longer at that point they're not cherished. They're in transit, and maybe somebody who will buy it, who'll cherish them again, or maybe it'll pass through a few hands before it finds that person and be part of their world for, I don't know, 20, 30, 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
and then they move on. So, yeah, there's things that objects that outlast us, you
Yeah.
know?
Stories being told through items, through and the hands that they pass through.
Yeah, definitely. And I know there's a lot that's problematic about museums. There are a lot of problematic aspects of museums, and you and I have both talked about these things in the past. But nevertheless, I love going into a museum. I love just
Mm.
looking at things that our ancestors cherished. Yeah, and the mystery of it, because there are objects like those fantastic stone, those balls the carved balls that people find they find in Scotland, and we don't know what they are. They might be a game, or they might have religious significance, or maybe they're just ornaments. Who knows, But I like the mystery behind some of these objects.
And finding this hat pin also shows what we're talking about right at the beginning was the difference between Rilke's morality and perhaps what he should do, because
Yeah,
he hides it in plain sight, which I think is a very sharp thing to do, but
yeah,
excuse the pun. But and he knows that really this is the murder weapon. This should be in
yeah,
the hand in, but something gets him to know.
yeah.
There are warning bells ringing because he wants to protect one particular friend of his.
Yes, yes. So Rose, who runs the auction house, who he's known most of his life, I think, really, and who had a fractious relationship with the dead man. So yeah, I think that idea of loyalty, friendship, those obligations that we owe to people close to us who might not be blood relations, but uh, you're close. Yeah, these are priorities for Rilke, and he's got that intense loyalty even though they don't necessarily always get on, and that's quite normal as well. I think that the people that you're closest to, you might often have a fractious relationship with them, but you can have a fractious relationship with them because you're like that. Whereas a work colleague or someone that you're not so close to, they might say something you think, oh, well, I don't know, that's not my opinion, but you're not going to, you're not going to pull them up on it because you're not that close enough to.
I mean, it feels to me that these are Rilke's family, even though they have, sometimes display some terrible judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's that thing. Well, their family, almost like a shrug of the shoulder. Yeah, I know they've done this terrible thing. I know they've made this mistake, but what can you do? It's family.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Although with family, friends and family, there is always a line, isn't there?
Oh
And
yeah,
I think in the to the dogs, there's a point where,
so,
there's a point when somebody's thinking, gosh, this is my son, and yet he's crossing so many lines. I wonder when he'll cross
my line.
my line, and I don't know where my line is.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
might be a point when it gets crossed, and then you find out,
And
because
you really that doesn't happen.
we all have the end of the road. So, yeah.
And in terms of, I think we've spoken about horror movies before and things like that, but I've just been to see 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which if you haven't seen it,
Oh,
I think you would
I've
really
not seen it.
love it.
I've not seen this one yet, and I'm such a fan of those films. Yeah, I went to yeah.
Well, this one deserves, it's an eight, the previous one was a 15, this is an 18 certificate and deserves it. It's
Oh, okay.
something.
I'll be
But I
watching
was
it like
wondering
that.
then about, there's quite a gruesome death. We discover the hat pin through the eyeball. And do you like coming up with inventive ways to kill your characters?
No, I mean usually it's quite a straightforward death, really. Yeah, but this, I think almost in a way it's going back to the second book I wrote, which was about Christopher Marlowe, and this is how Marlowe dies. He gets a sword, a dueling, and it is a recognized sort of dueling move to pierce the optic, and all the way back it goes, and really not nice, not
Yeah.
nice. Hopefully fast, but yeah, yeah, I don't like to think about it too much.
Well, maybe be wary if you go and see 28 years later. Um,
I do love that film. I'm like this when I'm watching the.
and again, you mentioned The Cutting Room being voted a favourite debut novel, which is fantastic. But were you aware of just how influential that novel is to, I was going to say crime writers, a generation of crime writers, but actually writers in general? Because I've spoken to this with a number of writers. Callum McSorley, I can remember specifically talking about it, and just what an influence that novel was.
Oh, that's nice of Callum to say that. Um, no, I like the idea that people are still reading it, and I think, you know, like Edgar Allan Poe, I was listening to something about Poe, and somebody said he was writing to get read. And I think, yeah, I want to be read too. I'm not I think Emily Dickinson was writing to be read as well, actually. But um, as I am pleased that people are still reading it and it's still got some relevance. So that's yeah, if that's the case, then I'm really pleased about that. And you know,
And it's interesting as we're talking, and you're talking about the differences in kind of social ideas and feelings from the time. I remember reading The Cutting Room, and there's a sense of danger in all these novels. Rilke is nearly always put into danger. But in that first one, there was a sense of danger from him just being who he was, what his
yeah,
sexual orientation was. I can
yeah,
remember clearly the scenes in Kelvin Grove Park where he's, going around looking for companionship and thinking, well, there's a real immediate danger here.
yeah, and it's viscerally dangerous, and it's still. There's still places. Well, we're going to be hosting the Commonwealth Games this year. There are multiple places in the Commonwealth where it's not legal to be gay, where it's not legal to speak to a gay person. If you know somebody's gay, it's against the law not to hand them in. So that danger continues to exist all around the world. It's got better in Scotland, it's got better in the UK. There are still places where you might be alert.
Yeah.
But back then, yeah, it was really, really super dangerous. Uh, that when was it's only been legal to be a gay man for 20 years in Scotland. Um, the police were, when you read some of the police instructions, police papers, they're horrible. They're really disgusting instructions. You know, so yeah, it's difficult to talk about actually because it makes you angry and it makes you sad because there's generations of people who
So
had to live, under that shadow. I love the Bronski beat. Oh, Small Town Boy. I think there's something in that really captures it, that generations of people that would leave Scotland to go somewhere bigger, a bigger metropolis where they would have a better chance of living some kind of decent life. When I
yeah,
say decent, I mean good. I don't mean
yeah, no, I know. I think for me that's one of the most important songs, certainly of the 80s. I mean, just an incredible song.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary on Stanley Baxter recently.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
wonderful. You should. It's on iPlayer at the moment, and he
Yeah.
was talking about how being, until his latter years before he came out, and he was married for many years, and there was
Yeah.
tragedy involved in that as well. And you just think, yeah, this man who was an incredible success in nearly everything else he did was an absolute giant and genius, but still the sadness at the heart of him because of when he was living in this country.
Yes. Yeah. And he was very, very good friends with Kenneth Williams, who was also another gay man who was very tortured
Mm.
by this, because if ever, so D.H. Lawrence says when he publishes Lady Chatterley's Lover, he says no one likes to be called a cesspit. And I often think that, the level of abuse, institutional abuse, rejection that people experienced. Uh, yeah, the idea that you would be mentally unstable, that you would be a pedophile, all of these things. It was quite repulsive. So I think we can't blame people that didn't come out because it's a very different landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still think, again, going back to the cutting room, you wrote about a world which hadn't been written about much in Scottish literature to that stage. And I think that maybe is part of the legacy that goes on from it.
Yeah, oh yeah, and it was the time of keep the clause, and there was a very active campaign to keep clause 28, and I was just very angered by that, and that I think that anger is a power, anger is an energy, and I think some of that found its way into the book
Mm.
through kind of humor. I think the anger somehow turns into this sort of brutal humor, because what can you do? You just have to laugh. And then, sometimes you think, oh my God, I'm just laughing too much. I'm laughing too much because this is
Mm.
horrible. It's horrible. But I think that's what people quite often do with their pain, hardship, whatever. And, it's not the only thing that people do, but and of course, I grew up during the AIDS epidemic, the way that people were treated during that. It's all sort of these things are never overtly mentioned in the book, but I think they're, in there.
Yeah, and I think all of certainly all the Rilke books and probably most of your books, there's injustices happen and you're, pointing them out to people that there are injustice. Certainly in the cut up, that's the case.
Yeah, and you want to, I mean, really, you want to write a good, fast-paced book that will keep people absorbed and keep them and give them a good time. I want, even though the subjects can be heavy and bad things happen to people, I think I want to do something that's got a quick pace, characters that you can relate to an extent, or even if they're very different from you, you can still get close to them. And I want there to be a good story, but underneath it is the real world and that idea that there are crimes against individuals and there are crimes against society, and we can see that just now, it's playing out in real time all around us, the crime against the individual and then the crime against society as well,
Yeah.
which we're all part of.
And going back to the characters as a whole, it seems to, and every time you write one of these books, I so enjoy catching up with them because for all their flaws, they're really, you enjoy spending time with them and their interactions and all those things. I get the feeling you enjoy that as well. You enjoy writing about them.
Oh, I really enjoy writing about them. I enjoy writing Rose and I enjoy writing Les. And
Oh,
there's a sense of slight sense of anarchy about Les because Les isn't going to knuckle under. Les is never going to go and get a job and do the 9 to 5 thing. He works hard, but he's never going to be a salary man. Uh, yeah, and so he doesn't have to answer to anybody really, except of course sometimes we do. Sometimes the law gets involved.
yeah.
And I like, yeah, I like Rose's outfits. I like, but I also like she's sharp, and I think she's got a good sense of humor as well. And
Absolutely. Her
I
and
like
Rilke, the
interactions.
scenes between her and Rilke really, kind of work well with each other. And I think Les, particularly in this book, just makes some catastrophic decisions.
Yeah, yeah, we have, you sometimes I don't know, sometimes you go through periods in your life where you think every decision I made was the wrong one. I didn't break my streak. I just kept on making bad decisions. And sometimes you see it in your friends as well. Uh yeah, but and then things turn around. It's like Idris Elba when he did The Wire, fantastic choice. And then for me when he did that other, what was the other, is it, oh, I can't remember. He had this whole series of things that he did that you thought, oh my God, Idris Elba, you're such a great actor. Why aren't you making good choices? And
Yeah.
now he's back with Hijack, and you're like, hey, you
But
made a good decision there. But other people will disagree with me. They'll think that he made good choices all the way through.
do you think Rilke will be back? Have you even thought about it?
I think one more. I think there's one more, and then I think that's it. Because I thought there would be three, because think three is quite a solid. Three
Yeah.
is solid, isn't it? But I think there'll be a fourth one, and then I think that'll be the end. Um, yeah, I think that'll be it.
And talking about three, something else which occurred to me after I watched 28 years later. It's a pandemic plague film. It's a series. That's really what it is. And did your Plague trilogy, which I think was between 2014 and 2017-18, I think that's when the three of them come out, did that get renewed attention during COVID?
Um, I don't know, to an extent. I got invited to do a lot of online sessions, online book festivals and online chats and things. I didn't look at sales figures or anything. I don't think it translated into bank balance in any way. But yeah, I got asked to talk about it. And of course, I mean, I'd read a lot of apocalyptic fiction. Uh, but I was no better equipped to deal with COVID than anybody else, really. I just did the same thing. I went for my walk, learned how to make good cocktails. That was good. Missed people, really missed seeing people. Um, Made banana bread, same same things.
I just wondered. I was talking to the writer Peter May,
Oh, I
and
love Peter May. Yeah.
yeah, and he had a kind of pandemic type novel which had written before the pandemic, and it did get kind of, attention due to its subject matter. And I just wondered if
Yeah.
didn't have anyone get in touch with you to make the film of the trilogy.
It was optioned for film at one point, but it's never come together. So yeah, I would love it because I think I liked those characters and I liked the geographical span, of going from London to Orkney. I enjoyed the geography of it, and I guess when I was writing that, I was thinking about political systems and economic systems in a very, again, fast-paced adventure novel. but that the idea of big pharma, because I was thinking a lot about that, imagine you have something that can make people better, and your first thought is, how much can we get for it? How
Uh,
far can we push the price? And it's just kind of intolerable, it's disgusting. So I was thinking a little bit about that, but I was also thinking about capitalism in general and that idea that it's the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. It continues to an extent to a point within pandemics, because we saw it very clearly during COVID, didn't we? That no, it was no surprise that some people had a great lockdown, and also the profiteering that took place during that. Yeah,
well,
it's fun to write about in fiction. It's not fun to see playing out on the world stage.
no,
So
absolutely. But it was funny during COVID. I did think back to them and how kind of prescient a lot of what you wrote was, and thinking, "Well, I wish I could run away to an island, get away from all of this."
your boat would have been sent back. They would have been because they had sort of surveillance all around the Western Isles, didn't they? So caravans appeared, and it's serious. It's serious. You can't. I'm sorry. I'm glad that I don't always obey the rules,
Mm.
but I obeyed all the rules during lockdown. And it was it felt killing. It felt because there are people that you felt you wanted to see,
Yeah,
but we obeyed the rules, and I think society people should be proud that they did that because it's and I think it was very hard for a lot of kids feel that they missed out, but actually we all got the chance to do something for other people,
yeah,
and most people did it, and it was a unselfish act.
yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. And you mentioned the Commonwealth Games, like going back to Glasgow. Now, when they were here, was that 2014? It was,
It
wasn't
was
it?
2014. Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And yourself and Jude Barber were involved with the Empire Cafe. Um, well, first of all, you should let people know what the Empire Cafe is, because there's still stuff.
Yeah. Well, you gave us amazing help during the Empire Cafe. I think that's actually how we met with Scots Whay Hae, and you recorded so much of it, and it was such an important part actually that record and that putting it out into the wider world. It was really brilliant. So during the Commonwealth Games in 2014, there was a cultural program, and Jude and we'd worked together on a walking tour, an audio walking tour, Merchant City Voices that we put together. And we thought Commonwealth Games previously used to be originally were the Empire Games. And we thought this is the ideal time to have a discussion about Scotland and the North Atlantic slave trade, which people were studying it to an extent, people were making work about it, but it wasn't part of the popular discourse in the way that it is now. And so, with a lot of help from WASPs, we got to use the Brigade, the big space at the Brigade, and we had Clemis Anderson who came on board to help us organize a food program. And we had 30 or 40 events devoted to discussions, plays, music, films, artworks about Scotland and the North Atlantic slave trade. And thousands of people came through our doors. And we brought poem with the help of the British Council. We got to bring some poets from the Caribbean. We had Scottish poets. We put an anthology together with commissioned work from, and gave away thousands of copies of this nice anthology that had an intro by Dr. Stephen Mullen in it, explaining
Yeah.
Scotland's connection with the North Atlantic slave trade. So it was really, oh my God, it almost killed us. It was just, we had so many fantastic and interesting people. As I say, we couldn't have done that if work wasn't already being done. Way back in the 1980s, Maud Salter was making work about this. So it's not like we broke the news or anything, but it was, I think, a platform on which anybody could just walk in. And people did because the sighting of where we were next to the Clyde,
Yeah.
it was very close to a lot of what was going on in the games. And you know these big events, they're like money hoovers. And
Yeah.
it was very hot that summer.
But
And
yeah,
yeah, so it's like, and you're walking along the side of the river and it's hot, hot, hot. And mum, dad, children, granny, granddad, it begins to cost a fortune. And this was a big hall
mm,
with seats everywhere. You didn't have to spend money. You could, if you wanted to get a coffee, you could get a coffee or whatever. You could buy a book, in the evenings you could get a glass of wine, but you didn't have to. You could bring your sandwiches in. You could bring your own juice, whatever it was that you wanted, and you could sit down. And when you sat down, you would see something and you would hear a discussion, or you could wander about and look at the artworks. You could take these poems home with you. Maybe they sit in your sitting room for 4 years, 5 years, and then one day somebody opens them, and it's just that idea of raising the consciousness and the getting information across on something which at that point wasn't being taught in the classroom to the same extent. And something that I've noticed, at that point, it seemed, of course, academics were working on it, but a lot of the people that we connected with were activists working out with institutions, or sometimes, involuntary organizations and so forth. Uh, Creer were doing a lot of work on it at that point. But we had independent historians that weren't perhaps attached to institutions. We had visual artists, writers who were all making work. Uh, and it seemed, the academy kind of was catching up. But I think these people led the way.
yeah, yeah. And I know that Stephen Mullen, of course, did a lot of work in that area with his.
Stephen's amazing.
Absolutely.
He understands it, he understands the figures as well. And I think he wasn't, he wasn't a full-time employee at
Yeah.
the university then. He is now, and they're so lucky we're so lucky to have him. And he did a lot of the deep dive into University of Glasgow's connections to the North Atlantic slave trade, City of Glasgow's connections, and no doubt lots more that I don't know about.
And you then had a spin-off podcast more recently, Who Owns The Clyde, which is a fantastic listen.
Oh, thank you for that. From one podcaster to the other.
Yes,
Thank you for
absolutely.
saying that. Yeah, so Jude and I are looking at it says exactly what it says on the tin. Who owns the Clyde? We're looking at murky ownership, privatization of natural assets, privatization of uh, land that was land and water previously owned by people like you and I, the citizens of Glasgow, and also that idea of owning water is a weird one, isn't it? We're controlling it. So we're looking at stewardship and thinking about nature rights as well. But basically, this started off because Jude was working, who's an architect, was working down at Waterrow and Govan, and they were making some houses down there, just on the water side, beautiful houses, mixed use houses. And she was involved with discussions about the bridge and the siting of the bridge, which I think was very important. Where you site a bridge, isn't it? And that bridge had been, promised for about a decade. I think when the Riverside Museum was opened, they were told it'll be open within about a year. And I think that might have been 2011 or thereabouts.
Yeah, roughly about
Yeah,
that time. Yeah.
yeah. So 2024, is that right? 20, no,
No.
yes, 2024 it opens. It's because we're in 25 now,
Is that
isn't it?
right? Is
So
that how recently? Oh, is it
the
really?
bridge, the
Yeah,
bridge,
yeah, yeah. I know
yeah,
what
the
you
bridge
mean. Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
just last year. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Of course it was last year. Yeah, I thought that
yes, it's like a
was right.
decade for the bridge to open. So why is that? Well, private land, private, Peel Holdings saying, who would want people from Govan landing on going to the West End? These private owners have power, and they have power over not just the land itself, but over people's lives, because that's a decade of children in Govan being able to see the Riverside Museum, but having to make a long journey to go there. And now I was in the Riverside Museum talking to someone. They're like, "Oh yeah, we just, suddenly you look up and there's a whole class of school children you didn't expect
Mhm.
because their teacher can say, you know what? Let's just go over there. Let's just go and look at it. We
Absolutely.
don't have
It
to.
changes lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have to ask permission. They don't have to get a bus. They don't have. They can just walk there. So yeah, so that was kind of where we started because in that discussion, one of the people from the council said to Jude, this is just about the last piece of unused land we as a council own on the Clyde. And Jude was like, so if the council don't own it, who does? And that was where we started off the what we call a citizen investigation.
Well, I mean,
So
if people haven't heard them, they're so interesting and kind of make you angry as well when you listen to some of them. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
but do you have any plans for the Commonwealth this time that you can tell us about? Maybe you don't.
We do, yeah, we do. We've got because it's all rushing at us quite fast, isn't it? So we're going to be in the Brigade again. Less time. We're going to be there for 2 weekends, and it's kind of watch this space. We've got a lot of things going on. Yeah. So we've also got a collaboration. I think with again Scottish Poetry Library and some Commonwealth poets. So yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. But it's a real passion project, as you can tell, and just speaking to a lot of different people. And the podcast has been a joy to make. We've got to meet people connected with the river from lots of different angles, lots of different places. We had a conversation with Colombian river guardians from the Atrato, talking about nature rights with them. Just amazing. It's amazing the connections that you can make. Sometimes the door is open.
Yeah,
Sometimes the door is shut. There's people that won't talk to us, and
yeah,
surprisingly, they're quite often people with a lot of power. But I can say, people from the city council have opened their doors to us, people from all sorts of different places. So you get the feeling Glasgow really wants the Clyde to
yeah.
to to be active and to move and for people to be able to enjoy things, enjoy their leisure, to be able to, I don't know, engage with the river in all sorts of different ways. And unfortunately, that's not so easy at the moment.
Oh, and it hasn't been for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Going back to your novels, I mean, you've written novels elsewhere, but do you enjoy setting them in Glasgow in particular? And do you learn more about the city when you do write them there?
Yeah, I learn something new about Glasgow every day, really. It feels like. Uh yeah, I do. I enjoy the I keep using that word texture, but I've lived here since 1985 and I don't see myself moving really anywhere else, not for a long time, hopefully. Uh yes, I think Scotland in general, I feel we're lucky to live in Scotland. Whatever people say about the weather, just dress warm. You'll be fine. I like being in a place that it sounds like a cliche, but people talk to you. And I think that's how you learn. You learn from people just chatting to you, and I like that this is a city that's becoming increasingly multicultural. That's something that I think we're getting a lot of benefit from that. And I like, you know, obviously I work at a university, so I'm going to think this, but I think it's popular to denigrate students. Oh, the students, the student housing. Oh, it's going to change the character of our. But I think, oh my God, we've got young people from all over the world coming here, and they want to be here, and they love it, and they want to come back. My partner was in China, so I was striking. She was in China recently, and she met a young alumni from the university, and she said, "Oh, would you ever come back to visit?" And he said, "Well, actually, my girlfriend and I met in Glasgow, and we're both going to go back." And he said, "And we're going to visit the university." He said, "And I'm going to propose." She doesn't know, but I'm going to propose in the quads at the university. And so he was like, "Oh my God, isn't that's a young person or two young people from the other side of the world." Yeah, I could cry actually. It's so nice. We were saying if we knew when they were coming, we could arrange a piper.
That might give the game away, but Please, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Oh,
All
it's
the very
such
best
fun.
with the cut up. It's a
Thank
fantastic
you.
read, and yeah,
Oh, thanks, Alistair.
and we'll
Yeah.
be back soon with someone completely different.